So, I'm not going to go into any more of this here, other than, well, since we're talking about the University of Virginia, when Jefferson was choosing textbooks for the University of Virginia, what Jefferson wrote to, who the hell did he write this to? Let's see. In my footnotes, it'll be in the footnotes. Oh, to an unknown recipient, okay. Jefferson was really glad when in 1818 somebody had written a systematic arrangement of Lord Coke's first Institute of the Laws of England, and this is the book. So now there was Coke, who Jefferson wanted to be taught to law students. Now there was a version of it that was easier to read for students. So Jefferson writes to whoever this unknown recipient was when, in 1825, when they were picking the textbooks and professors for the University of Virginia. He's writing about Francis Gilmer, who I believe was going to be the law professor at the University of Virginia, but ended up not being for some, he died or got sick or something. Anyway, but this is what he writes. He says, "I am very glad to find from a conversation with Mr. Gilmer that he considers Coke Littleton, as methodized by Thomas, as unquestionably the best elementary work, and the one which will be the textbook of his school." His school meaning his law school at the University of Virginia. "It is now as agreeable reading as Blackstone, and much more profound." So Jefferson was happy that the guy who he wanted to be the law professor at the university was not going to be using Blackstone. And then he wrote to Madison, James Madison, in 1826. How do I introduce this here in my book? There is no question that Jefferson did not want Blackstone's commentaries or any law professor who was influenced by it at the University of Virginia, writing the following to James Madison in 1826. "In the selection of our law professor, we must be rigorously attentive to his political principles. You will recollect that before the Revolution, Coke Littleton was the universal elementary book of law students." And again, just what I said, the founders did not learn from Blackstone's, because he's talking before the Revolution. "And a sounder Whig never wrote, nor of profounder learning in the orthodox doctrines of the British Constitution, or in what were called English liberties. You remember also that our lawyers were then all Whigs. But when his black letter text and uncouth but cunning learning got out of fashion, and the honeyed Mansfieldism of Blackstone's became the student's horn book, from that moment the profession, the nursery of our Congress, began to slide into Toryism, and nearly all the young brood of lawyers now are of that hue. They suppose themselves indeed to be Whigs, because they no longer know what Whiggism or Republicanism means. It is in our seminary that the Vestal flame is to be kept alive. It is to spread anew over our own and the sister states. If we are true and vigilant in our trust, within a dozen or 20 years a majority of our own legislature will be from one school, his university, and many disciples will have carried its doctrines home with them to their several states, and will have leavened thus the whole mass." So Jefferson's intent with the law school at the University of Virginia was to not use Blackstone's, which was turning the young lawyers into what he referred to as Tories, but to use the University of Virginia to leaven the whole mass of the United States with his political principles. Now, Barton and them, they complain about, like today, you know, all the stuff about the liberal universities, you know, trying to politically influence the students to, you know, be elitists and this. Jefferson was like the worst, worse than anybody now, because now that's really not true. Back then, Jefferson was writing right here in this letter to Madison, like, hell yeah, we're going to use our university to influence all these people to our political views. Okay, I know I said I wasn't going to read any more of these letters, but this one I have to read. This was one that Jefferson wrote in 1811 to William Cabell Rives on the subject of his own education. Now, who Rives was, he's more associated with Madison. He actually ended up being the first biographer of James Madison. He knew him, the family friend, whatever. And he also edited the first edition of Madison's papers. So he was quite a bit younger than Jefferson, so Jefferson's advising him on his own education in 1811. And this is what he says about Blackstone. It says, "Nothing can be sounder than your view of the importance of laying a broad foundation in other branches of knowledge, whereon to raise the superstructure of any particular science which one would choose to profess with credit and usefulness. The lamentable disregard of this, since the Revolution, has filled our country with Blackstone lawyers, Sangrado physicians, meaning bloodletters, okay, a ranting clergy, and a lounging gentry, who render neither honor nor service to mankind." So he's saying, right in there, Blackstone lawyers, bloodletters, and a ranting clergy are not the way he wanted our country to go. He goes into this whole thing of the Enlightenment thinkers that the founders were influenced by, and where the Declaration of Independence came from, all this sort of stuff. All the thinkers, Hugo Grotius, Richard Hooker, William Blackstone, all of these people who were read by the founders. Only Hume was a secularist, okay? Jefferson hated Hume. Jefferson, like went up there with Blackstone. So now Barton goes into this whole thing of trying to excuse why the founders read this secularist Hume, but he doesn't have to, because he could just say, well, Jefferson didn't like Hume. Oh wait, Barton does actually say that Jefferson found Hume endeavoring to mislead by either the suppression of a truth or the giving it a false coloring. So he actually does say, so this whole freaking section is kind of unnecessary. I guess it'll just look impressive to Barton's readers, all these names of Enlightenment thinkers that he knows about, so Barton will sound all scholarly and crap. Okay, this is really good. Okay, so a little while ago, we were saying, Barton says that Jefferson, because of his own education when he was young, that when Barton's talking about religion and being taught by religious people, he's saying that Jefferson would want students at the University of Virginia to learn from exactly the same people that he learned from when he was a young student, and uses the religious one, or most religious Blackstone, which Jefferson didn't learn from as a kid. But now, when it's the shoes on the other foot, and he's talking about Hume, who was a secularist, he quotes Jefferson saying that although he read Hume when he was young and a student himself, that he later decided that he disagreed with Hume. So if Jefferson could later, through further research and being more mature and older, whatever, go back and say, okay, this book that I read when I was younger and ate it up, he said, devoured it, okay, I later decided it was necessary to eradicate the poison of it from his mind, then that should apply to all those religious books and religious teachers, whatever they taught him too. But it doesn't, because they were religious and Hume was a secularist. Okay, so then he goes on. Jefferson was similarly forthright in his criticism of other secular Enlightenment writers. So again, whatever secular writers Jefferson read, he could dismiss and disagree with. Whatever religious writers Jefferson read would have stuck with him for the rest of his life. So Barton only mentions like a few writers here that Jefferson criticized, and then says, so if secular Enlightenment writers were not a primary force in shaping Jefferson's thinking, then who was? And then he's got, well, okay, Jefferson said his three favorite, most important men ever, whatever, were Bacon, Newton, and Locke. Okay, so now, of course, I can already know what's coming here. He's going to go into, John Locke quoted the Bible however many times in his treatises on government, yada, yada, yada. Jefferson studied not only Locke's governmental and legal writings, but also his theological text. His own personal summation of Locke's view of Christianity clearly shows that he definitely did not consider Locke to be a deist. According to Jefferson, Locke's system of Christianity is this: Adam was created happy and immortal. By sin he lost this so that he became subject to total death. You know, Barton's got a hell of a lot of ellipsis in this quote. I think I'm going to have to look this up here. We'll go to Barton's footnotes.